Order 66 caught most of the Jedi Order completely off guard, allowing the treacherous clone troopers of the Grand Army of the Republic to all but exterminate the Jedi in a matter of hours. But the clones weren't able to take all the Jedi by surprise. A few especially cynical Jedi had always had doubts about the clones, and this extra suspicion allowed them to avoid execution at the end of the Clone Wars. In this video, we'll be talking about 3 such Jedi, all of whom fought in the Clone Wars but kept enough distance from the clones to escape Order 66.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Let's start with Rahm Kota, who you might be familiar with if you've played The Force Unleashed. Kota was highly unusual as far as Jedi went. He came late to the Order, he had a notably abrasive personality, and he was more acclimated to war than a Jedi should be. He was born on a war-torn planet, and he had been recruited into one of his homeworld's many armies as a child, enduring 8 bitter years of bloody trench warfare before being found by Mace Windu and recruited into the Jedi Order. Despite being way too old to be trained as a Jedi, and despite how much of a dark side risk it was for the Jedi to train someone who had endured such extreme trauma, Kota was accepted into the Jedi ranks, and he eventually became a Jedi Master. During the Clone Wars, Kota served in the Grand Army of the Republic as a Jedi General, and he was better suited to that role than most Jedi as he had experience with warfare. However, unlike his fellow Jedi Generals, Kota refused to take command of a clone unit. He didn't believe that the clones were capable of enduring the worst war had to offer, and his experience fighting on his homeworld had shaped him to believe that only recruited soldiers were worthy of his trust on the battlefield. Kota also believed the clones were dumber and less creative than recruits, which was a strange and generally incorrect belief, but one he held strongly. Above all, however, Rahm Kota refused to lead a clone unit because he found the sudden appearance of a clone army suspicious, and no matter what, he just couldn't shake that distrust. Kota knew in his gut that the clones were bad news, and he refused to fight alongside them because of it. He didn't want to miss out on the Clone Wars though, so instead of deserting the GAR like some other Jedi did, he assembled an army of his own. He assembled a legion of PSF veterans, mercenaries, and former separatists, creating an elite unit capable of serving both in general infantry and special operations roles. Kota's militia served with distinction in the Clone Wars, participating in offensives all over the Outer Rim. They saw some of the worst of the Clone Wars, but thanks to the leadership of General Kota, they always prevailed. Kota's stubborn refusal to work with clones ultimately saved his life. When Darth Sidious issued Order 66 to all Republic troops at the end of the Clone Wars, Kota's men refused to carry it out. They had all been personally recruited by Kota and fought with him for years. They all preferred to be branded as traitors than to betray their general. In fact, they actually stuck with Kota after the war's end, protecting him from Palpatine's agents when the Republic became the Empire. Most of them even joined Kota as he started a war of his own, a personal crusade against Palpatine and his new empire. Next up, we have Quinlan Vos. Vos, as you may know, was another somewhat unusual Jedi. He spent much of his career as a Jedi struggling with the temptations of the dark side, and during the Clone Wars, this struggle only intensified. Unlike most other Jedi, Vos initially wasn't made a general in the GAR. During the Separatist Crisis, he had established a network of spies throughout Republic space, and he was initially ordered to just keep doing his espionage work. In the early months of the war, however, his spy net fell apart, and so the Jedi Council gave him another top-secret mission. He was to fake a fall to the dark side and infiltrate Count Dooku's inner circle, where he would act as a sleeper agent. This mission was known only to a few. Vos and the Council were able to make it appear as if he truly had betrayed the Republic and gone over to the dark side. Vos was successful in joining the Dark Acolytes, a group of fallen Jedi that served as Dooku's most trusted lieutenants. Dooku could sense that Vos hadn't truly embraced the dark side, but he accepted him into the Dark Acolytes anyway, as he knew the young Jedi's history and believed he could draw him to the dark side for real. He eventually succeeded in this, though Vos himself remained in denial about it, convinced that he hadn't fallen and was only carrying out his mission. For most of the Clone Wars, Quinlan Vos repeatedly switched sides, becoming first a double agent and then a triple agent in the hopes of unmasking Dooku's mysterious Sith master. During the siege of Saleucami, however, Vos was finally able to break free of all this nonsense, triumphing over the dark side and turning his back on Dooku. After this, Vos finally set out to serve as a Jedi general, taking command of a clone unit that had lost its original general and leading it in the Battle of Kashyyyk. Vos kept the troops under his command at arm's length, however. He didn't trust the clones, and he downright disliked Commander Fey, the officer in charge of his unit who was insufferably by the book. This distrust led Vos to work less closely with his clone subordinates than most other Jedi did, which ultimately saved his life. At the time Order 66 was executed, Vos was commanding a column of Juggernaut tanks on Kashyyyk when the tank behind his suddenly opened fire on him. Vos was initially believed dead, but he managed to narrowly survive the blast, and he immediately realized what had happened. Vos immediately launched into survival mode, avoiding the patrols of clone troopers dispatched to search for him as he fled into Kashyyyk's forests. Vos eventually escaped the Jedi Purge after killing Commander Fey and disguising his corpse as his own, following which he went into exile. Lastly, we have Djinn Altis, who was probably the most unusual Jedi of the bunch. Altis was well known for his heterodox interpretation of the Jedi way, which clashed pretty heavily with that of the Jedi Council. He believed that the Jedi should eliminate the age restrictions they imposed on new recruits, allow masters to train as many Padawans at once as they wanted, and allow Jedi to marry, all restrictions that the Jedi Order implemented during the old Sith Wars. The Council of course disagreed, and Altis eventually broke away from the Council to form his own sect of the Jedi Order, known as the Altisian Jedi. Altis and his followers were few in number and known for their eccentricity, and despite their heterodox views, they were tolerated by the Jedi Council as they still followed the Jedi way and didn't cause any trouble. During the Clone Wars, Altis and his followers initially joined the war effort in a secondary capacity. Primarily, they did humanitarian aid work for the Republic, but they also occasionally got involved with GAR missions, at least in the early stages of the Clone Wars. That all changed after a mission to Jan Fathal, where Altis was horrified by the ruthlessness the Republic's clone troopers demonstrated when dealing with separatist insurgents on the planet. This mission drove Altis to realize that the Republic had gone down a dark path and that the clones were dangerous, and as a result, he and his followers abandoned the Republic war effort, instead seeking to find a way to end the Clone Wars as soon as possible. Because of this, Djinn Altis and most of his followers survived Order 66, and they managed to avoid the Empire during the first years of its reign as well. Altis's ultimate fate is unknown, but after the rise of the Empire, he and his students went into hiding, covertly working with a group of Mandalorians and clone deserters to get other Jedi survivors to safety. Altis's conscience ultimately saved his life. Unlike too many other Jedi, he saw the warning signs in the clones and understood what the Republic was becoming, and he was able to get out of the war effort before it was too late. So, that's our look at 3 cynical Jedi whose distrust of the clones allowed them to survive Order 66. But what do you think? Would you like to see more videos about Order 66 survivors in the future? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comments below.